Jabir ibn Hayyan ibn Abdullah al-Azadi was an Arab Muslim scholar. He excelled in the sciences of chemistry, astronomy, engineering, mineralogy, philosophy, medicine, and pharmacy. Jabir ibn Hayyan is considered the first person in history to have used chemistry practically. According to the most widely accepted accounts, he was born in 101 AD, 721 CE, though some say 117 AD, 737 CE. Accounts differ regarding his birthplace. Some historians say he was born in the Jazira region on the Euphrates River east of the Levant, while others claim he originated from Haran in Mesopotamia. This latter attribution may stem from a similarity in names, as the Jabir associated with Andalusia is the Arab astronomer Jabir ibn Aflah, who was born in Seville and lived in the 12th century CE. Some believe he was born in Tus in the Persian province of Khorasan, while Zaki Najib Mahmud suggests he was born in Kufa, a view supported by several other academic studies. At the beginning of the 10th century CE, the identity and works of Jabir ibn Hayyan were the subject of considerable debate in Islamic circles. His books in the 14th century were among the most important and influential sources for chemical studies, shaping scientific thought in both the East and the West. Several scientific terms from Jabir's Arabic research were transmitted to European languages via Latin, into which his works were translated. He became known as Geber or Yeber. Ibn Khaldun, in his Muqaddimah, Introduction, while discussing chemistry, described him as the master of compilers, Jabir ibn Hayyan, to the point that they attribute the field to him, calling it the science of Jabir. He wrote 70 treatises on the subject, all resembling riddles. Abu Bakr al-Razi, in his Sir al-Asrar, Secret of Secrets, described him as one of the most brilliant Arab scholars and the first pioneer of chemistry, frequently referring to him as Master Jabir ibn Hayyan. Ibn al-Nadim mentioned his works and provided a brief biography of him in his Fihrist. The English philosopher Francis Bacon said of him, Jabir ibn Hayyan was the first to teach the world the science of chemistry. He is the father of chemistry. The French chemist Marcellin Berthelot said of him in his book Chemistry in the Middle Ages, Jabir ibn Hayyan's contribution to chemistry is like Aristotle's contribution to logic. That is, just as Aristotle excelled in philosophy and was a genius in it, so too did Jabir ibn Hayyan excel in chemistry.
He was given many titles, including the Great Master, the Sheikh of Muslim chemists, the Father of Chemistry, the Exalted Mystic Saint, and the King of India. Chemistry itself was also called Jabir's craft, named after him. His contributions. He is credited with inventing and preparing several acids, including sulfuric acid, which he called oil of vitriol. The total number of manuscripts attributed to Ibn Hayyan is approximately 3,000. These contributions included works on cosmology, music, medicine, magic, biology, chemical techniques, engineering, grammar, metaphysics, logic, and astronomy. Some of his chemical works were translated into Latin during the Middle Ages and widely circulated among medieval European chemists. Ibn Hayyan was influenced by the writings of ancient Egyptian and Greek alchemists such as Plato and Aristotle. There was also a vast body of quasi-literary writings on chemistry written in Arabic. Among Jabir's most important scientific contributions to chemistry was the introduction of the experimental method. He is credited with inventing and preparing several acids, including sulfuric acid, which he called oil of vitriol. The total number of manuscripts attributed to Ibn Hayyan is approximately 3,000. These contributions included works on cosmology, music, medicine, magic, biology, chemical techniques, engineering, grammar, metaphysics, logic, and astronomy. Some of his chemical works were translated into Latin during the Middle Ages and widely circulated among medieval European chemists. Jabir ibn Hayyan presented a pioneering theory of chemical combination in his book Knowledge of the Divine Attribute and Philosophical Wisdom, stating, "Some people mistakenly believe that when mercury and sulfur combine, a completely new substance is formed. In reality, these two substances do not lose their essence. They are simply broken down into tiny particles, which then mix together, making them indistinguishable to the naked eye. The resulting substance appears homogeneous. If we could find a way to differentiate between the particles of the two substances, we would realize that each retains its original permanent form and remains completely unaffected." This theory can be compared to the atomic theory developed by the English scientist John Dalton. Jabir presented a pioneering theory of chemical combination in his book Knowledge of the Divine Attribute and Philosophical Wisdom, stating, "Some people mistakenly believe that when mercury and sulfur combine, a completely new substance is formed. In reality, these two substances do not lose their essence. They are simply broken down into tiny particles, which then mix together, making them indistinguishable to the naked eye. The resulting substance appears homogeneous. If we could find a way to differentiate between the particles of the two substances, we would realize that each retains its original permanent form and remains completely unaffected." This theory can be compared to the atomic theory developed by the English scientist John Dalton. Jabir classified substances according to their properties into three different types: alcohols, which are substances that evaporate when heated, such as camphor and aluminum chloride; metals, such as gold, silver, lead, and iron; and compounds, which are substances that can be converted into powders. In short, according to Sarton, the true value of Jabir's work cannot be known until all his writings are edited, published, and disseminated. The balance. Jabir ibn Hayyan was among the first to use the balance to measure the quantities of solutions used in his chemical experiments. He had his own units of measurement, the smallest of which was the green, which weighed approximately 0.05 grams, 1/6,840th of a pound. Combustion. Through his experiments, Jabir discovered that combustible materials, when ignited, release sulfur into the atmosphere and leave behind lime. Ink, paper, and paint. Jabir invented a type of luminous ink to aid in reading manuscripts and letters in the dark. At the request of Imam Jafar al-Sadiq, he invented a type of fire-resistant paper which he used to write the book Jafar, which is now housed in the House of Wisdom Library. He also discovered a type of paint that when applied to iron made it rust-proof, and when applied to clothing made it waterproof. Furthermore, he discovered methods for preparing numerous compounds such as steel, lead carbonate, mercuric sulfide, and nitric acid.
Alchemy began as a mythical tradition rooted in ancient legends, dominated by the idea of transmuting base metals into precious ones. This stemmed from the belief among scholars in pre-Islamic civilizations that malleable metals like gold, silver, copper, iron, lead, and tin were all of the same kind, their differences arising from inherent heat, cold, dryness, and moisture, qualities that, according to the theory of the four elements, fire, air, water, and earth, could be altered by a third substance, the elixir. From this premise, some scholars in pre-Islamic civilizations imagined the possibility of creating an elixir of life or a stone of wisdom that would cure life's ills and prolong life. Some early Arab and Muslim scholars, such as Jabir ibn Hayyan and Abu Bakr al-Razi, were influenced by the theory of the four elements, which they inherited from the Greeks. However, they subjected it to rigorous scientific study, which led to the development and application of the experimental scientific method in the field of experimental sciences.
The attempt to ascertain the validity of the four-element theory helped Arab and Muslim scientists identify a vast number of chemical substances and understand some chemical reactions. Therefore, Muslim scientists are credited with developing and discovering some simple chemical processes such as distillation, sublimation, filtration, crystallization, amalgamation, and oxidation. Through these simple processes, leading figures in the field of chemistry were able to invent various instruments for scientific experiments, which ultimately led modern scientists to explore space. Some of Ibn Hayyan's achievements. Here is a brief list of some of Jabir ibn Hayyan's achievements in the field of chemistry. He discovered caustic soda, sodium hydroxide. He was the first to prepare aqua regia, or aqua fortissima. He was the first to introduce the method of separating gold from silver by dissolving it in acids. This method remains prevalent to this day. He was the first to discover nitric acid. He was the first to discover hydrochloric acid. He believed in spontaneous generation. He added two elements to the four elements of the Greeks, sulfur and mercury. The Arabs added a third element, salt. He was the first to discover sulfuric acid and named it oil of vitriol. He introduced improvements to the methods of evaporation, filtration, fusion, crystallization, and distillation. He was able to prepare many chemical substances such as mercuric sulfide and arsenious oxide. He succeeded in developing the first method of distillation in the world. He invented a distillation apparatus using a glass vessel with a long funnel, still known today in the West as an alembic, derived from the Arabic word alembic. Jabir ibn Hayyan improved the quality of this glass in the apparatus by mixing it with manganese dioxide. He created non-combustible paper. He explained in detail how to prepare arsenic and antimony. Western testimonies about him. Jabir ibn Hayyan laid the scientific foundations of modern chemistry, a fact attested to by many Western scientists. Berthelot said of him, "Jabir is to chemistry what Aristotle is to logic." The English philosopher Francis Bacon said of him, "Jabir ibn Hayyan was the first to teach the world the science of chemistry. He is the father of chemistry." Max Meyerhoff says, "The development of chemistry in Europe can be traced directly back to Jabir ibn Hayyan. The greatest proof of this is that many of the terms he coined are still used in various European languages." Ibn Hayyan relied heavily on experiment in his research and believed in it deeply. He used to advise his students, saying, "The first duty is to work and conduct experiments, because whoever does not work and conduct experiments will not reach even the lowest levels of mastery. So, my son, you must experiment to attain knowledge." He died in 815 CE in Kufa, Iraq, at the age of over 90, after fleeing there from the Abbasids following the downfall of the Barmakids. He was imprisoned in Kufa and remained there until his death in 197 AH, 813 CE, or, according to another account, 195 AH, 810 CE.